I'm calling an ambulance.
911.
I need an ambulance to report to 970 Pickett Street North.
Okay.
We have staff assault.
How many ambulances do you need?
One at this time. Stand by
Okay.
at South Gate.
Stand by at Southgate. Do we know any extent of injuries?
No, we've got a bad situation going on. Bye.
That bad situation was an attack on Stillwater Corrections Officer Joseph Gomm. And corrections officers across the prison were told to rush to the metal shop with multiple radio calls.
And over here, you had a hammer. And we found that once the staff was called, most every officers on high alert.
The door was closed, barricaded, and all you could hear was, "He has a hammer, he has a hammer."
Responding corrections officers entered a horrible crime scene. This video, shown publicly for the first time, shows medical staff desperately trying to save Gomm's life.
I saw a large pool of blood coming from his head. His head appeared to be fractured.
Anybody want to go? I didn't know it was Officer Gomm. I didn't even know who it was because of what I saw. I had to get up close and look over him because the injury to his head.
And it's the chain of events leading up to Gomm's death that leaves his family, to this day, incredulous.
You're speechless. You read into that and you're like, how did this ever happen?
There's lots of documentation that said something was going to happen. It's all there.
For Gomm's family, it all starts with Edward Johnson. He's the inmate convicted of murdering Gomm. Johnson, shown in this video a short time after the attack, was transferred into solitary confinement by a group of corrections officers. And another video, taken the day of the attack, shows a bloodied hammer and 2 homemade knives that were hidden in the metal shop. Tools investigators say Johnson used to kill Gomm.
We get all the condolences, we're sorry for your loss, we're sorry this never should have happened, but nobody will ever admit fault.
Gomm's sister, Audrey Cohn, says the family questions why Johnson was allowed to be in the metal shop, given his history of violent and threatening incidents at the Stillwater Correctional Facility.
It could have easily been prevented. Joe didn't have to be murdered that day. Joe was the first corrections officer murdered while on the job in the state of Minnesota, and nobody wants to take responsibility for it.
The investigative file shows since 2004, Johnson had more than a dozen major disciplinary incidents. In one of those, he lost an eye in a fight with another inmate, an incident Johnson blamed on a corrections officer for making a security mistake. That officer told investigators she feared Johnson would retaliate and harm her or another officer if he wasn't transferred. And that officer says she warned her bosses at the prison.
I was screaming it from the rooftops and they weren't listening. It wasn't if, it was when. He's full of rage, and this was totally premeditated what he did.
The investigative file shows on the day of his death, Gomm was the only officer in the metal shop, along with dozens of inmates. One inmate telling investigators that prisoners who are a problem should not be put up there around pipes and metal bars, especially with only one officer.
The M shop supervisor wasn't there that day, and we only had one officer up there, which should never happen anyway. That should never happen. There should always be 2 officers at all times in a situation like that up there.
Step in just a little bit.
Investigators also asked then Stillwater prison warden Eddie Miles how an inmate like Johnson gets assigned to the metal shop. Miles says inmates apply to be there and also receive a psychological screening.
But you got to take a test. You got to be able to all whatever the health services, the psychology, all those criteria is. Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
Based on everything we know, that's an epic failure on the DOC's part. Just knowing everything that we do know now about Edward Johnson says to us he should never have been in there.
The file also shows a letter Johnson wrote to a family member telling them something bad was about to happen. And just 16 days later, he killed Joseph Gomm.
Did he ever talk to you guys about feeling unsafe?
Yes.
How did he express that?
He told me that every day he goes to work, there's a chance that he may not come home.
And a review of state records shows the Department of Corrections was fined $25,000 for not providing a safe work environment at the time of Gomm's death. The DOC is currently disputing that claim, saying it, quote, took reasonable steps to provide a safe environment for employees, and that it, quote, cannot eliminate all risks that an offender will commit violent criminal acts while in custody.
All of the writing was on the wall. Why did this happen?
It's very frustrating. Joe went to work to do a job. He was doing his job, and he was murdered for doing his job.
And this $3 million appropriation for the family that's being considered at the legislature, what does that mean to the family?
That someone's finally going to take responsibility and say, we messed up, we caused somebody to lose their life. For me, it's an admission of guilt, and I really hope that the legislature can get this appropriations approved, and if not, we're hoping that the governor can step in, Governor Walz will step in and do the right thing.